Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel, where I cover vampires, werewolves, and other supernatural creatures. In this video, we're going to take a look at the vampires from Stakeland. This film came out in 2010 and takes place in a post-apocalyptic world. Civilization has been decimated by the vampire virus, and only small settlements of humans remain. We follow Martin and a mysterious man only known as Mr. as they travel somewhere known as New Eden, a place that supposedly has no vampires. Let's take a look at how the vampire outbreak began, the different species of vampires, and more. If you enjoy videos about vampires and other supernatural creatures, leave a like and subscribe for new videos every week. Before we get into Stakeland, I'm happy to say that Bespoke Post has returned to sponsor another video. They're one of my favorite to work with because I truly enjoy their products. I use stuff that I got from Bespoke Post literally every day. Bespoke Post is a monthly membership club delivering a box of awesome, top shelf goods from under the radar brands. It's free to join and you can skip or cancel anytime. 90% of the products come from small brands, many of which are based in the US. This knife from the Terror Box is made by Bare Bones, based in Salt Lake City. Every month, they introduce their members to cool new products. Outdoor gear, barware, home and kitchen goods, clothing, and more. What you receive is based on a preference quiz that you fill out. Every box of awesome has around $70 worth of goods inside, but only costs you a fraction of the value. Each month you'll get a box of awesome assigned to you, and before it's shipped you'll get to preview what's inside. You can decide if you want to 1. Keep it, 2. Swap it for a different box, or 3. Skip the month entirely for no charge. You only pay for what you want, and they add new boxes every month. Some of my favorite boxes from the past have been the Dram box, the Bullseye box, which has throwing knives made by Titan International, and I always enjoy the Scorch box, which comes with an assortment of craft hot sauces. This time, I went with an outdoors theme. The Switchback box has a bunch of useful things in it. Premium stainless steel multi-purpose knife made in Sweden, a trifold shovel that's strong but can easily fit in a backpack, a waterproof pocket-sized SOS lantern and flashlight that's chargeable and solar-powered, a military marching compass with a bunch of features, and a fire starter. I also got the Weekender box, which comes with this really nice, heavy canvas bag made by Line of Trade. It has metal hardware, real leather straps, a reinforced frame, a pocket for a laptop, and best of all, it's super durable and looks classy. I'll be using this a lot. To get 20% off your first box of awesome, click the link in the description and enter Cogan20 at checkout, or go to bespokepost.com/Cogan20. A box of awesome would make a great gift for the holidays. That's Cogan20 at checkout, or go to bespokepost.com/Cogan20. They continue to support my channel and I truly enjoy everything I receive from them, so a big thanks to Bespoke Post for sponsoring another video.
I've seen things you wouldn't believe. Things a boy shouldn't see.
The movie begins and the outbreak is already underway. We see a newspaper clipping that says Jerusalem burns, and the US is under attack. Martial law has been declared, but it might be too late. Martin is packing up his things because his family is going to flee to safety. The man on the radio says that FEMA is advising families to stay in their homes and not to travel at night. While preparing to leave, Martin's family is attacked by vampires and killed. By pure chance, Mr. just so happened to be nearby and heard the screaming. He tells Martin to be quiet. There's nothing he can do for his family now, but they can kill the vampire that did it. When they enter the barn, there's blood everywhere, and we hear a baby crying. The vampire does a little jump scare, but they manage to kill the vamp with a stake to the heart. These vampires don't seem to have any kind of healing ability, but they can take a lot of damage. These vampires are more like a zombie than a traditional vampire. They're mindless, undead feral creatures that think of nothing but feeding. Their appearance is very disheveled and often have wounds and blood on them. Once the vampire's dead, they realize that Martin's father has been infected. He asks Mr. to take care of his son before getting his head cut off. Mr. decides to train Martin in the art of vampire killing, and the two stick together. They are currently trying to find a place known as New Eden, supposedly a place far north with no vampires. We learn later that New Eden is just another name for Canada.
We avoided the cities. Mister said they were the worst, hit the hardest in the beginning.
One question we never get an answer to in the movie is what caused the outbreak. Where did it come from? Well, I actually found the answer in one of the webisodes that was released before the movie. In this short video, a kid is making an extra credit video for school about his dad being a butcher. His dad explains that he used to get a lot of meat from the Midwest, but he's now getting a lot from South America and Mexico. He brings some pork home with him for dinner, and we see on the TV the outbreak has already begun. When serving the meat for supper, the son says, "I don't want any meat. I'm scared." This sounds like they were probably warning people not to eat pork. The dad adds, See, you gotta turn off the TV, all this bad news. Later, the son goes outside and his dad is standing in front of his car. As the kid gets closer, his dad isn't responding. He suddenly becomes very aggressive and we can clearly see that he is a vampire. I found an interview with one of the writers and main actors, Nick D'Amici. He said that the origin of the virus never made it in the movie, but it was a pig flu that originated somewhere in South America or Mexico. That matches exactly what we saw in the webisode. The butcher that turned into a vampire was eating pork, and he said that he was getting his meat from somewhere in South America or Mexico. So this vampire virus mutated from a kind of pig flu, also known as swine flu. That explains why sometimes they make pig noises. Although the virus started in the south, it quickly spreads worldwide. There's a newspaper that says death toll in Mexico reaches 75,000. In the second Stakeland movie, we learn that that's where Mr. was when the outbreak began. When traveling, they always avoid the cities because they were hit the hardest in the beginning. As people huddled together for safety, it only created a better breeding ground for the virus to spread. The safety zones meant to save people that were behind locked gates became death traps. Once people started to turn, there was nowhere to run. Washington, D.C. was attacked early on, and this led to the collapse of the government, which made things even worse. Later in the movie, we're told that D.C. did not fall to vampire attacks alone though. It was because of a cult/terrorist group known as the Brotherhood. They crashed airplanes full of vampires into D.C. as well as other cities in order to speed up the apocalypse. And it worked. They also filled trucks with vampires and crashed them through barricades into the lockdown towns. Martin says that during the apocalypse, cults spread across the southern states, waiting for the Messiah. But he never came. Some religious groups must have thought this was the apocalypse spoken of in the Bible, an event that is supposed to cleanse the earth of the corrupt people and governments, allowing only a chosen few to remain. It reminds me of the line from Night of the Living Dead. When there's no more room in hell, the dead will walk the earth. It makes it sound like it's some kind of punishment for humanity. The government's original plan was to evacuate as many people as possible to Canada, but the country fell apart before that could happen. Big cities became total death traps due to the high population. Some small towns survived. They put up fences and had guns to defend themselves. Like most vampires, these ones are burned by sunlight, so they are usually only a threat at night. The only other way to kill them is a stake to the heart or decapitation. I've found that most things are weak to decapitation. They are not affected by holy objects, silver, or garlic. So this vampirism behaves more like a biological curse than a supernatural virus. Although Mr. does put garlic oil on his steaks just in case. Martin wonders if it really works, and Mr. says it can't hurt, so he doesn't know if it works, but better safe than sorry. It could be like other biological vampires that develop an allergic reaction to garlic because of their condition. But like I said, it never confirms that garlic does anything. Most vampires can be killed with a stake to the heart, but not all. There are a few different types of vampires we encounter throughout the movie. Originally, the webisodes that were released before the movie were going to showcase different types of vampires, but plans changed while they were shooting. During the movie, we encounter at least 3 different types of vampires. The first one that is identified is a berserker. Mr. can tell what kind of vampire it is by the teeth. Berserkers are the oldest of the vampires, been around since the beginning. Since their body has had more time to mutate, this could explain why they are stronger. Berserkers also have a thicker breastbone, so they can't be staked in the chest. So they're like a Reaper from Blade 2. Instead, you have to stake them in the base of the skull, severing the spine. Mr. says vamps operate on their reptile brain, so severing the spine is like pulling the plug on a computer. Another unique vampire that we see is called a scamp. This refers to a child that was turned into a vampire. They are usually smaller and not as strong as other vampires. The rest of the vampires we see could just be considered normal vampires. There could very well be other unique vampires, but they aren't identified. Mr. does say that he's seen other mutated vamps, so there could be many different kinds. When someone is bitten, it doesn't take long to turn. Martin's dad was bitten, and within minutes he's already beginning to change. One thing I noticed was this virus does not affect any animals. We don't see much wildlife in the movie though, so maybe the vamps killed them all off. Although these vampires look like zombies, they do drink blood. They are referred to as bloodsuckers many times and have the traditional 2 fangs. After Mr. kills a vampire, he pulls out their fangs. These are used for trading in lockdown towns. First, Mr. trades some teeth for entry into a town, then later uses them to purchase a bottle of alcohol. As far as I could tell, the vampire fangs are just used for trophies. They don't have any special properties. Mr. and Martin arrive at a lockdown town and they seem hesitant to let him in. But when he shows them the amount of vampire fangs he has, the guy immediately changes his mood, almost like he's a little intimidated. Through conversations, we learn that most people remain in the towns and have never killed a vampire. Some have probably never even seen a vampire. But yet here's Martin and Mr. just roaming around a stake land. Like I said before, this is much more reminiscent of something like The Walking Dead than a traditional vampire movie. As for abilities, these vampires have better stamina and are much stronger than a human, especially the berserkers. They are able to easily send a human flying several feet. All vampires are also very resilient. They can survive stab wounds, gunshots, being run over by a car, and probably more. This vampire gets shot with a shotgun multiple times at point blank range and it does nothing. Like I said before, they don't seem to have a healing ability, but they're also undead, which means they can live for a long time with large wounds just like a zombie. Their vision and hearing seem to be pretty similar to a human, but they do have a better sense of smell, at least for blood. Martin says they can smell it from miles away. Martin and Mr. stop at a town on their way to New Eden, and this town uses a train to block the way in. While there, Martin talks to the clerk working in the store about New Eden. The man behind the counter asks where they're going, and Martin says north. That's when the clerk says, "Not New Eden." Apparently, a guy came through town and he said there was nothing there. There's no food at all. It's not the vamps you need to worry about. It's the cannibals. Sounds like New Eden might not be the paradise they hoped for, but they decide to keep going anyway. New Eden reminds me of Arcadia from the Resident Evil movies. Some kind of mysterious promised land. Martin has a map that shows what areas have vampires and where some important locations are. Looks like they're still working on mapping it all out. While traveling, they come across a woman being chased down by some members of the Brotherhood. Mr. kills them in a brutal fashion, and they take the woman with them. That night, they find a house to stay in and prepare for nightfall. The woman tries to explain what happened to her, but Mr. says, "We don't do history. Doesn't do anyone any good." This becomes a reoccurring thing, almost like a catchphrase. They set up a number of traps to alert them if a vampire walks nearby. Mr. sets up a bear trap and a stuffed animal on a string. He drips some of Martin's blood on the stuffed animal. Vampires can smell blood from miles away, so he's gonna use it like bait. I'm not a vampire hunter, but this seems kinda counterproductive when you're trying to hide. Later, a vampire steps on one of the traps. They pull the stuffed animal with Martin's blood on it up the stairs, leading the vampire into the bear trap. Once it triggers the trap, they run inside and finish it off. This vampire was a nun from the town named Sister Agatha. Why is every nun named Agatha? While driving, we hear the Brotherhood broadcasting on the radio. "Satan's soldiers march in the night, but God has not abandoned us. Jesus and the angels are coming, and judgment is upon us." The three of them eventually get captured by the Brotherhood. They set up a trap that looks like a bunch of cult members drank the Kool-Aid, if you know what I mean. There's a baby crying, but when they get to the front of the large tent, it's a tape recorder. Suddenly, all the men that appeared to be dead stand up. Mr., Martin, and the woman who is only referred to as Sister are captured and brought in front of the Brotherhood. They meet one of the leaders, Jebediah Loven. I'm not sure if he's the overall leader of the Brotherhood, but he's at least one of the higher-ups. Apparently that guy that Mr. left to bleed out on the road was Jebediah's son. Yeah, that's not good. Jebediah keeps Martin and the woman to be slaves, but he releases Mr. in the middle of the night with no weapons, surrounded by vampires. During this time with the Brotherhood, we learn that they do in fact believe that this apocalypse is an act of God. On top of that, they believe the vampires are servants of God. Jebediah calls them children of salvation, sent here to rid the world of the faithless and corrupt. He even believes that he can control the vampires to some degree. He says, "They come at my calling, to feed on the unfaithful." I find it strange that earlier on the radio, we hear the Brotherhood call vampires Satan's soldiers, but now calls them children of salvation. Anyway, Mr. survived his night alone by hiding in the trunk of a car. Martin escapes the Brotherhood camp the next day and goes looking for Mr. Martin was trying to get to safety before nightfall, but unfortunately, he got caught in the dark. He finds a car, but he can't get inside. Just then, he's attacked by a vampire. But lucky for him, Mr. was in that car and pulls Martin into the trunk and they get away. I think Mr. was sleeping in the trunk because the car has a soft top convertible, so not very good protection. They stop in a lockdown town for the night and buy a bottle of alcohol with some vampire fangs. The bartender says the next town is on the other side of Brotherhood territory. They meet a pregnant woman while they're there. She's trying to make it to New Eden before the baby is born. When they leave the next day, the woman is hitchhiking and Mr. reluctantly picks her up. While driving through Brotherhood territory, they find a soldier that was left for vampire bait by the Brotherhood. Now it's the four of them and the sister is presumably still with the Brotherhood. They end up finding a few members of the Brotherhood, including Jebediah. They disguise themselves as members and Jebediah doesn't suspect a thing. They pull their weapons and overpower the members. Mr. wants to know what the sister is, but Jebediah says she ran off. These guys are terrible at keeping prisoners. They send the two Brotherhood members running into the woods with no clothes. As for Jebediah, Mr. ties him to a tree and cuts his back. Martin says vampires can smell blood from miles away, and he could tell from the look in Jebediah's eyes, he knew it too. They leave Jebediah tied to the tree and continue to New Eden. They finally make it through the stretch of Brotherhood territory to the next lockdown town, Strivington. This town seems to be doing pretty well. There's many people with carts selling things and kids playing. The town also makes everyone check in their weapons and you get them back when you leave, so it's pretty safe. While there, they even find the sister, so after running away from the Brotherhood, she made it here. The town seems great and they're enjoying themselves. But the sanctuary doesn't last long. During the night, the Brotherhood flies overhead and starts dropping vampires from a helicopter. This wreaks havoc on the town and many are killed. After the attack, the five of them move on from the town to keep heading toward New Eden. They are going through the mountains for a while, and during this time, they don't encounter any vampires. Martin says they are cold-blooded, like reptiles. This makes sense because they're technically undead and have no heartbeat. This would make their body temperature very low and they would freeze in cold weather. Martin states once they get back to a lower altitude, they'll start seeing vampires again. The five of them set up camp near some abandoned cars for the night and they set up all their traps. One of the traps move, alerting Mr. and everyone else wakes up. They are attacked by a large group of berserkers. I have to say I enjoy the look of these vampires. It leans more towards zombie, but they look good. Effective for a horror movie. The group is forced to run away through the cornfield. This leads to the sister becoming separated from the group. Eventually she collapses from exhaustion, unable to run anymore. She says, "Father, forgive me," before taking her own life. Poor sister. She escaped the Brotherhood just to be captured by Jebediah again, then escapes a second time just to be run down in a cornfield by vampires. She should have been spared by the Children of Salvation, if you believe what Jebediah says. The remaining four survivors find a bus in the woods and use it as a shelter for the night. It's already got a wood stove, so somebody must have been living here before. They set up all their usual traps and go to sleep. In the middle of the night, we see the soldier named Willie go out to use the bathroom and the screen fades to black. When Mr. wakes up in the morning, Willie is gone. Did he wander off? None of the traps were set off, so it doesn't make any sense. They go off looking for him in the forest and eventually come across his body when it falls out of a tree right next to them. They left Strivington with 5 people, and they're already down to 3. Mr. is more worried than usual, because this vampire took Willie away from the camp to kill him, and it got around all the traps. Mr. says he's seen a lot of mutant vamps, but he's never seen a thinker. They usually operate on pure instincts alone, like a rabid animal. But this vampire is different. They continue moving north, but that night, they are attacked again. This time the vampire tricks them. First, it leads Mr. and Martin away, and then it captures the pregnant woman. They run after her, following her screams, and Mr. realizes that they're being led into a trap. However, Martin doesn't care because he wants to save the woman. They are led to a large abandoned building. When they arrive, it's already too late for the woman named Belle. She has been wounded and tied to the wall with a rope and barbed wire. Below her is a pool of blood. While Martin is taking in the sight of Belle, Jebediah Loven enters the room. I guess he didn't die tied to that tree. And he is the mutant vampire that's been torturing them. He says, "I'm a vengeful god. Eye for eye, tooth for tooth, son for son." So he's still mad about that. Jebediah knocks out Martin and tells Mister that after being left tied to that tree, he prayed. He prayed and God listened. So when they came for him, he gave his blood willingly. Could the fact that he gave his blood willingly really have anything to do with this transformation? It's hard to say, but he is the only vampire we see capable of intelligent thought and speech. Although he is more intelligent, Jebediah doesn't seem to be any stronger than other vampires. Martin wakes up and attacks Jebediah from behind. This gives Mister a chance to stake him through the heart, finally killing him. Martin is forced to put Belle out of her misery because she is too far gone. He also stakes her through the heart, which makes me think that Jebediah must have bit her. Jebediah has been defeated, and it's now back down to just Mister and Martin. They continue on their journey to New Eden and come across a diner with a girl around Martin's age named Peggy. Her parents died, so she lives here alone now. She points a gun at them, then invites them inside for food. Peggy comments on a vampire near the diner and says they are running out of food. They are thinner, but more angry. This could be because the population of humans is dying out. But in the second movie, the vampires seem to be doing just fine. Maybe it's just because vampires are more likely to starve the farther north they go, because the humans are so spaced out. This brings up the question of immortality. Can they live forever like other vampires? Considering they are infected with a variant of the swine flu, and it appears they can starve, I don't think they are immortal. It's possible the virus could affect their body in a way that allows them to live longer than a normal human though. That is, as long as they have humans to feed on. Martin and Peggy are getting along really well, and Mister can see this would be a better life for Martin than sticking with him. When Martin wakes up, Mister is gone, but he left the truck and his necklace hanging from the mirror. This necklace is actually from Mister's webisode. He finds his friend wounded, and when he dies, Mister takes this necklace. After Mister leaves, Martin and Peggy pack up and drive north. It doesn't take them long to reach New Eden, aka Canada. They finally made it. And there's no mention of cannibals being in New Eden, so I guess that guy that came through the store was a liar. In the following movie, we see that Martin had a child with Peggy and they lived a pretty happy life. Canada must be safer because its population is a lot lower. Plus, the colder winters would keep the vampire population down. In the following movie, The Stakelander, or Stakeland 2, the Brotherhood still exist. They all start to embrace the way that Jebediah thought and begin worshipping vampires. Eventually, another vampire is created that's similar to Jebediah, one that's intelligent. This vampire becomes the Messiah for the Brotherhood. They refer to her as the Mother, the one sent to wipe the earth clean of sin. That's my video on Stakeland and a little of Stakeland 2. What do all of you think about this movie? I consider it a classic in the vampire genre. It has a really unique feeling, and I enjoyed the design of the vampires, the post-apocalyptic setting, and the characters. Let me know if you guys would like to see a video on Stakeland 2 and the Vampire Messiah. And of course, let me know if there's any other movies, TV shows, or video games you want me to cover. I always enjoy reading through your suggestions. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like, and subscribe if you haven't. It helps out a lot and I really appreciate it. As always, a big thanks to all my members that have gone out of their way to support the channel. Roderick, Zothra's Paradox, Adam O'Kaby, Matthew Batson, Dragonfey Rose, Emily Nixon, Onyx Cat, Walter Collin, Dominique Toussaint, Zara Shadow, Jason Miller, Gabriel Ragsdale, Steve Lloyd, Jake Walker, Awesome Pea Shooter, Cyper2890, Mark Thorpe, Steven556, Owen Waldish, and Joseph Roman. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.